Welcome. Start of a new academic year for pretty much everybody, I think. And so we're back with our clinics and super excited to be back. Hopefully you're all well. Hopefully you've had a nice relaxing summer. I'm not sure. Maybe that's a distant memory now that all the students are flooding back and you're back to working hard. I'm sure all of you. We are super excited to be back, as I said. For those of you who are just joining us and you're new, I'm Laura. I work in the advice team for jisc, and my subject specialism is accessibility. And I'll let Kelly introduce herself. You're that way for me, Kelly, so I'm going to point that way.
Hello everybody, I'm Kelly. I work with Laura at jisc. I'm also a subject specialist for accessibility. I've not been in a clinic for absolutely ages, so it's great to be back and to see everybody and just be back in this lovely, welcoming, sharing, friendly space. And yeah, do feel free to grab your coffee. I think Christine's got a yogurt.
Ooh, nice. Yeah, it's super.
Have a sandwich.
Yeah. If you are eating your lunch, that's totally okay because we appreciate you're all busy people. But we have a fantastic session for you today. We are super lucky to have from the Oaks Specialist College, Libby Wilkins. And so the Oaks Specialist College have just, I think you said you just renewed your Microsoft, I'm going to get this wrong, ambassador status? Is it ambassador status? No.
Yeah, we've been awarded as a Microsoft
Showcase, that's it, that's the word I was looking for, showcase status. So we were super keen to find out all the stuff that Libby'd been doing, and so nobbled her to ask if she could come and speak to you all and just impart some of the things that they've been doing and the things they're working on. So Libby's going to give us a bit of a presentation. We'll obviously be having a monitor of the chat, so by all means fire some questions in there as you think of them so we can ask Libby once she's done chatting. You can keep your cameras on, it's lovely to see your faces, but equally you can have your cameras off. And so I will start sharing the presentation for you, and hopefully we can, oh, it's not, I've pressed the wrong button, people, so bear with me. Just bear with me. Here we go. And we'll be able to kickstart off. Here we go. And I'll make sure I'll share the sound. And there is a video. And here we go. So hopefully you can give me a shout when you can see the slides.
Thanks, Laura.
We can see that.
Fab. All right, then, Libby, thank you for coming.
Just before we go ahead, just to say, I've popped a message in the chat. Just we want to collect all the organisations and institutions that you guys are from, just so that we've got a good understanding of who comes to clinics and things. So if you could do that at some point during the session, that would be awesome. Thank you very much. And I'll shut up and butt back out again.
You ready for me to start, Laura?
Yeah, you go for it, Libby. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. So I'm Libby. I'm from the Oaks Specialist College. We're in Tunbridge in Kent, in southeast of England, and we have 116 learners aged 19 to 25, all of whom have an EHC plan. So all of our learners have various different learning disabilities. And our main focus at the Oaks is to make sure that all of our young people are able to leave us as independent as possible and ready for employment where that's appropriate. And through that, we have a massive focus on everyday technologies being used to aid independence. So our vision statement, next slide, please, Laura. Our vision statement is to develop digitally empowered young people who have autonomy over their independence. And that word autonomy is really, really key for us, because it's not about telling young people that they have to use certain pieces of tech or certain apps. This is about allowing our young people the choice to develop which pieces of tech, which apps actually help them with regards to what they want to do. So this isn't about taking away maybe a person for support and simply saving people money. This is about actually our young people being able to decide where and when they ask another person for help. And that takes many, many different forms. So with our young people, we're looking at a cohort who in general would not baseline to qualify for long-term funding for pieces of assistive technology. So we are a specialist college, but actually a lot of what we do lends itself to the mainstream sector as well, rather than simply sitting within a specialist setting. And our main focus is quite a hot topic at the moment, thanks to a statement from the Education Secretary, I think it was yesterday. Our main focus is phones. And with phones, we find that our young people come in being able to use that technology and don't need training to use that technology. And yet they are walking around with some really powerful pieces of technological equipment. Next slide, please, Laura. So we use phones throughout the college. We actively encourage young people to bring their phones to college. We loan out phones to young people who maybe don't have phones or whose families so far have not seen a purpose for their young person to use phones. And I think the first thing that I would like people to do, if possible, if you can just kind of think, it's a bit trickier over Zoom, but if you can just think of all the different ways that you use your mobile phone within a day, and if you can pop some of your kind of sort of initial ways of using phones in the chat. Things like train tickets, social media, emails, maps, lots and lots of different ways, calendars, reminders. Interestingly, so far nobody's said making phone calls. And generally that's what we kind of find, is that actually our young people are using their phones for all of these reasons that you are putting in the chat at the moment. Taking photographs is a really key one as well for a lot of our young people, because they are really visual learners. So one of the first things we do is we take photographs of our timetable so that you can have access to it. And making sure that actually our young people are comfortable with technology that we are introducing into their lives, and technology that they will retain access to once they've left. So I think I used my phone today probably about 5 or 6 times before I got to work. It woke me up, it read my Teams messages to me in the car on the way to work, it diverted me along the A21 so that I missed some roadwork so that I could actually get to work on time. I had my calendar come through, I received some emails, and that was all just before I got to work. Oh, and I showed a video to my children as well this morning to encourage them to get out of bed so that they could also get to school. So we use our phones interchangeably all the way through our days, and 91.5% of adults within the UK use a smartphone on a daily basis, and that's data from 2021. So that's most likely going to have increased that statistic. And so where we were looking at young people, where we could see that actually they had various different blockers to their education. It might be reading, it could be organisation, for a variety of different communication needs as well. We were looking at young people coming in with a piece of technology that potentially could aid those things, both inside college and outside of college. And yet, when young people came in, they were coming straight in, and then they were putting their phones away, having to put their phones in their pocket, and then take them out at the end of the day. And that seemed like a massive wasted opportunity. Laura, I can't see the PowerPoint anymore. I don't know if that's true for everybody. I'm not sure. Everybody else has a blank screen as well, Laura. I think. but I really want to show everyone a video.
Technology. Oh,
I
I
really
will.
like tech.
I'll stop sharing and share again because we're
Thank
not
you.
even that.
So we use phones a lot. We realised that actually it was a piece of technology that was a massive leveller for a lot of young people. And most of our young people come in with a phone already, often without a SIM card, because most reasons that we use phones don't require you to make a phone call. And we have a lot of families who will use a phone with a young person so that they can make choices with regards to watching a YouTube video, but they will put it on Wi-Fi rather than having a SIM card in it. And so actually we loan out our phones without SIM cards in, and if a family put a SIM card in, that's a separate entity. We don't require anybody to have a SIM card in their phone as we're using them. So whilst Laura works out what's happening with the PowerPoint, I just explained a couple of things.
I'm so sorry. I might have to drop out and then come back again. So, but I will.
No
Yeah, because
problem.
it's not letting me do what I need to do. So I'm really confused. Sorry about that, people. I'll be back in a minute.
So with our phones, we start off by looking at the blockers that young people have. So we run communication lessons within the college week, which allow young people to have experience of a variety of different apps. But alongside that, we also assess young people with regards to where they are finding that they are able to access their world as well as education. So we don't limit what we're doing simply to the college day or to education specifically, because our main aim is about our young people. It's back, thank you, Laura. Our main aim is for our young people to leave us. As much as we relish the time that we have with these young people, our whole job is that every young person who comes into our college leaves the college being able to do more than they came in, to live fulfilled, independent lives within the realms of them as a person, and to focus on their aspirations. And so it made no sense for us to say to young people, well, you need to learn our technology whilst we're here. These are the laptops we have, you must use ours, and ask these young people to transfer their context of learning from the college to the outside world. So phones became this natural choice for us. And when we were looking at phones, we started looking at a variety of different apps. So we now, within the college, use 32, as of this morning, 32 different apps throughout the college. Not every app is used by every learner. Apps are used where appropriate. They are not forced into the curriculum. But we do not have separate lessons where these apps exist. So they're used holistically throughout the curriculum. And a lot of that has been about how we support our staff to be confident in doing that. And I'll approach that at the end. But what I wanted to do was just show you a couple of clips and case studies of what we do and how we kind of do that. And then I've sent Laura a list of our top used apps, which I think she'll be able to put in the chat for people as well. So if you were all in a room with me, we'd all be getting our phones out and trialing some of these things. And I would actively encourage you to do that, either during today's session, especially if I drone on a bit, or after today's session, and see what's appropriate for you. So Laura, if you're happy to share the next slide, we've got just 30 seconds of part of a BBC segment about some of our young people. And so you're going to just hear what Sky's been doing.
Let's use our phone to help us find it out.
The phone in Sky's pocket is a powerful computer. She has additional needs, but with a little help, she's learning how to use everyday apps that can help her read. Today, they're practicing on a menu.
Really excited about it.
And where are you going to go first and try it out?
The Weatherspoons.
And what will you be able to do now with that at Weatherspoons?
To read the menu and to see what I want to eat.
Okay, so that was Sky, and so Sky's been using her preference is Google Lens. We offer both Microsoft Lens and Google Lens, and they do slightly different things. And her preference is Google Lens, and her immediate reaction of where she wanted to use it was in Wetherspoons to read the pub menu, which is a much better reason to use it than to access your English assessment. However, we use it to access your English assessment so that actually you don't have to necessarily have somebody read to you. You can choose to read that to yourself. You can put a headphone in and you can read any of the text to yourself should you wish. And that then helps engender those skills so our young people can take them out into the real world. And we encourage that. So when we go out into the community, we work with our young people so that they can read the menu in Wetherspoons. So that actually this is a skill that transcends education into the real world, which is kind of the main key here. So Laura, on the next slide, I've got 3 kind of case studies, and I'm just going to run through the impact for these 3 learners. So I've got all of their permission before speaking about them. But I want to introduce to you a gentleman called Max, who has over 100,000 followers on TikTok. He is a much cooler human being than I am. He is massively motivated by social media. We do a lot of work with him about how to keep safe with regards to that, and actually about appropriate content to create and engaging content. And we work with his motivations and his aspirations, because after all, that's where education should ideally be working towards for every young person. And there is an app called Flip. It used to be called Flipgrid. And it's a Microsoft app, and it's basically, I'd describe it as educational TikTok. So it works on the basis of small videos. You can record a video as a task, and then your young people, your learners, can then record their response to it. It's wonderful for things like learner voice. It's wonderful for work experience applications, for anything where a young person may need to explain themselves. And Max's key need is communication and making himself be understood clearly. And so our speech and language therapist has transformed how we do speech and language therapy at the college, and uses Flip to enable our young people to practice speech sounds within a context. So long gone are the days of young people carrying around a sheet of A4 paper with a list of words with similar sounds for them to practice. And actually, Max will look at a video and it'll say to him something like, in this week's video, I want you to include certain words that start with V. So I would like you to have video, vampire within your context. And then what Max does is he creates social media content on Flip, utilising the topics that he's been given. So it's engaging, as well as actually putting words within context rather than making speech sounds out of context. So again, it's this holistic approach to education. And what we found, not simply with Max, but across the college, is that people have gone from practicing their speech sounds in the morning in tutor time just before their speech and language session once a week, to practicing at home, to actively showing other people what they're doing, to engaging with this material in a way that we hadn't seen previously. And so Max is a very clear example of where that motivation came. And actually, he originally was the instigator of this particular type of communication. But we now have our middle pathway within the college who have a Flip session once a week. And it means that if you can't put something down on paper, you can be understood and you can listen for content. You can understand. Listening to understand what other people say is really, really key for communication. And so we end up having these sessions where this morning we were looking at personal identity. Just before I came here, I was in one of those sessions looking at personal identity and what makes me different from the person next to me, and creating a video, watching those videos together as a group, being able to start to understand and speak about the things that other people think about themselves, and then being able to contribute. And it's been an incredible way for our young people to develop their communication skills. So I know that's used quite a lot across some mainstream settings, and the way that it can be used is really quite inspirational and quite incredible. So if you haven't used Flip as an app, it's on the list that Laura's sent out, and I would say use them. So Flip is all of the apps that I'm talking about are ones that we use that are free, that learners will retain access to. It might be that you need to have a Microsoft account, but they work on the basis of, say, a Hotmail account, or signing up on that basis, as opposed to requiring a 365 subscription. And the next young person who I'm going to talk about is James, and you can see him on the right hand side, the photograph of him taking a picture of a computer screen. So he's using two different pieces of tech here, but actually when James came into the college 4 years ago, the phrase that you would hear from James very, very often was ask somebody else. If you would ask James a question, he would say to you, ask somebody else. And he would tell you that he can't read. And actually, James can read if you want to sit there with James for 15 minutes. He will read and sound out a sentence. But by the end of it, the meaning of that sentence is lost. And so meaningful reading isn't something that James is comfortable with. And to work with James to read a sentence isn't to further James's comprehension ability. In fact, we detract from it by making him sound out letters, and he's not motivated to do that. He's really rather motivated in being able to have something be read to him, because he can understand that. And so historically, James has gone through his education with regards to an English assessment. James has gone through education with somebody reading it to him and him then giving his response. And James has been okay at doing that. But then when James used Lens and didn't have somebody sitting next to him over his shoulder, we saw James's levels go up by 2 levels within one assessment. And that has been maintained. Him using that level of, so his comprehension is there. His comprehension is able to be demonstrated really quite keenly. But having somebody sit next to James isn't necessarily what he would choose. He would choose it over not reading at all, but he wouldn't necessarily choose having a person there. So he now uses his phone. He has one of our loaned phones, and he uses his phone in every session that he does. But more importantly, he uses his phone at home to read comics to himself. Rather than just look at the pictures, he now has full stories, and he is now widening what he uses that for. And that has made a massive difference. Speaking to his family, the impact of that on James's well-being, on James's independence and his autonomy has been incredible. And so whilst James himself may not use that within an employment setting, for James, that has been life-changing. We did have a young man recently who went to an interview with a job coach, and he can't read, but he was in his interview, and it became apparent that he needed to be able to read to run an industrial washing machine. And he spoke up and advocated for himself within his job interview and said, but can I bring my phone with me to work? And the interviewers said, well, why would you need to do that? We don't have phones at work. And he showed them and taught them within his interview how he uses Lens to read. And he got the job. And he's able to take his phone to work with him. And he's able to do his job appropriately without any other support. And that's a real world impact of how this app, which may work one way for one young person, can work in a very, very different way. And yet the impact is incredible. So James is pictured there using Google Lens, and I said before, I think that we use Google Lens and we use Microsoft Lens. The key difference between the two really is that Google Lens, when you use it, it keeps the picture of whatever you're taking. It keeps the picture behind, and then you can highlight the word and it'll read the words to you. Microsoft Lens takes the picture away, and so you will have either a white or a black background with the words on. You can change how you want that to present, and you can change that with different filters to have different colors. And we have some learners who prefer Google Lens because they prefer to keep that context. And we have other young people who actually prefer to use Microsoft Lens because they want to focus on the words and they prefer the context to go. And So where at the beginning I said the key is choice, we teach both, and we also accept that if you don't want to use any, you don't have to use any. There are other apps out there as well that will do very similar elements. And so we work with that, and also on laptops we use things like Immersive Reader for young people as well. So our main focus is phones, but we utilise these similar technologies from that point of view. And then the last case study I want to share with you on this screen is a young man called Aman, who is in a supported internship in a local hospital at the moment. And this one I kind of added in just this morning because this has happened within the past week. So Aman loves maps. He has memorised huge sections of the M25, and he can paint huge sections, including all the junctions of the M25. In fact, I have one in my office from memory, which is really rather impressive. All his main focus in life is maps. His supported internship, he is working in the reception area of the local hospital, giving people directions of where to go to their appointment. Now, if you're anything like me, when you go into a hospital, you're already flustered. And actually, what you do need is somebody who knows where they're going, even if you can see it on your letter and you can theoretically see a sign. It's really, really important to have people there who can actually help you get to where you need to go. And a gentleman came in needing medical help last week, but he didn't speak English and he was unable to make himself be understood. And so Aman independently took out Google Lens, put it onto the translate function, and used Translate to determine that this gentleman was Russian, that he needed A&E, helped the gentleman use that on his own phone, walked him to A&E, and made sure that the people in triage understood that this was how to communicate with this gentleman. So these are apps, and I'm talking about education, and I'm talking to educationalists, but this is about making sure that whatever it is that we do, this enhances people's lives, and people's lives are not restricted to our education establishments. And I think that's a really, really key thing for us at this college, is the fact that we're looking about the day a young person's left. Can they take this with them? Can they do this? Can they actually, it might be a really cool, fun thing to do in a classroom, but what's the long-term impact? Where is that going to lead to either future skill development, or is this skill itself a transferable skill? And certainly for our learners in a specialist setting, we then have to help translate that transfer of context. Having worked for 15 years in mainstream, we didn't necessarily translate the context for young people because they found that much easier, but it remained the same. What skills were there that were going to live beyond your classroom walls? And they were kind of the key things. So every time we look at an app, those are the key foci. And then, Laura, we've got another little bit of that BBC segment with a gentleman who was just about to go on his work placement or his supported internship with this, and then I'll give you the update of what's happened since.
And thanks to the training, Jake is about to start work as a hospital porter.
I am really, really excited to know different people learn off of them and help them out.
Alexa, read the instructions.
And the next project is using smart speakers linked to smart appliances to help students live independently. Peter Whittlesey, BBC South East Today, Tunbridge.
So that was Jake just before he went on his supported internship, being a porter at a local hospital. And Jake's hope was that he would be able to use Lens to read so that he knew where he was going, because the key thing with working within the portering team is the fact that you need to be able to get from one place to another. And so when the BBC came in, that was his key kind of hope. But not everything goes to plan. And I think it's really important, we encourage our young people also to work out what's going to happen when things don't go to that plan that you've got in your head. And so Jake went there, and he's not allowed his phone out. He's not allowed to use his phone because of GDPR. And so even though apps like Lens don't retain the images, from that point of view. There is a blanket ban on him being able to use Lens with regards to what he's doing. And so we went into his setting and worked with the Porterage team, and they get given an iPhone, and the iPhone runs a particular app. And that's all the iPhone does. It's completely locked down so that it runs this app and this app only. And so what we found was, when we worked with them, that actually the accessibility settings on the phone haven't been locked down. They're integral to the phone. And so we showed the Porterage team and showed Jake's manager that actually, if he could have one earphone in, a Bluetooth headphone in, so that things weren't being read aloud to breach GDPR, and only one in, so he can still hear the environment around him, so that he can still do his job properly, the accessibility settings of text-to-speech will actually read out those key elements within that app. And so utilising similar elements to Lens that Jake was used to previously, he's now able to actually have that same kind of impact and able to do his job more independently. But more importantly, there are also other members of that Porterage team who are now able to use the exact same thing. So they are people who have held down that job for 10, 20 years, who also have low literacy levels. And they were saying, actually, oh, I find that really useful as well. And so actually being able to open that up has been really, really key. And Jake has been instrumental in that within that team, which has made a massive, massive difference to Jake's confidence levels as well, because he's become the expert. He's now able to teach his bosses what he's doing. And previously, Jake wouldn't necessarily have been able to have that job. He wouldn't have been employable. Amon wouldn't have been employable. And actually, they should be employable, and they are employable. And utilising apps in the way that we do means that our young people know they are, have the confidence to advocate for themselves far more, which is really key, but also are able to do that successfully, rather than finding any job, actually following their aspirations to find a job that they want, that has a career path, is really, really key. And at the end of that little snippet from the BBC, you saw what our next project was going to be. And a lot of our young people will move into supported living. And I know that my own children love using Alexa to get Alexa to tell them various jokes, normally about farts or something completely inappropriate. And as a mother, I pretend that that's really not very funny at all, because that's what we're supposed to do as parents, isn't it? Is pretend that fart jokes aren't funny. However, what we then do at college is we now use Alexa within the life skills flat, and we do that in quite a wide-ranging way. So I know Laura's going to show you a little video in a second that's a couple of minutes long, because actually I can talk at you, but I think it's really key that you see what's happening in that flat. But the basic premise is the fact that we want our young people to be able to, yes, use these apps in education, yes, use these apps in employment, but also actually there's so much smart home equipment that enhances all of our lives, and that actually, whilst we take it for granted very often, maybe some of us don't take it for granted, I definitely had taken it for granted, there are really key things like Ring doorbells. A safeguarding lesson using Ring doorbells is really, really powerful. Do you know who you're opening your door to? Do you need just a little bit of headspace to work out who it is that you're about to let into your house? Is a really, really powerful thing. And previously, I just thought doorbells were quite a nice thing to have to make sure your Amazon parcel was still there. Because for me, that was the important element of it. But for other people, actually, we need to kind of start looking at the fact that these apps or these tools have really, really wide-ranging impact. And so everything within our flat can be bought on the high street, and that's really important because whatever we do needs to be able to live on for our young people. So there are some incredible companies that can put a sensor under every cushion and some amazing assistive technology, and that is really appropriate in certain circumstances. The cohort of young people that we are working with are the young people who do not qualify for that long-term funding for those elements. And so actually for us, it's really important for us to emulate what our young people are going to be able to experience when they leave college, and also to support their stakeholders with regards to that as well. And our next phase, which is being planned currently, is to introduce switches within the flat. So for things like smart blinds, and we've been discussing that with IKEA at the moment, because their smart blinds come with a little pad that you can touch. And so utilising those for some of our young people who have limited mobility will be really key, or who struggle far more with verbal communication will be key. But the reason that we've used Alexa is because it works seamlessly with an app called VoiceIt. And we have learners who use an app called VoiceIt. And at the time when we put the technology into the flat, and this may have changed by now, so that's my caveat, it may have changed, but our reasoning behind it was the fact that we had learners using VoiceIt, and VoiceIt will talk seamlessly to an Alexa app. Whereas to the Google Home Hub, it would say stuff out loud. So a VoiceIt app is for young people who, or for people who have non-standard speech. And it will recognize the non-standard speech, and it will use a variety of different means to put that into standard speech. And so to retain the dignity for our young people, if they can talk into their VoiceIt app and Alexa simply do something, that had to be a better answer than for our young people to talk into their VoiceIt app to then verbalize that in standard speech and take away that young person's dignity, and then for the Home Hub to do that. Now, Google may have changed that. I haven't gone back and checked since we put stuff in. So my caveat is that may well have changed now, but that was our reasoning for Alexa. So the wonderful Kai has helped create a video of his day in the life flat. It's about 2 or 3 minutes long, but it gives you an indication of some of the things that our young people use the flat for.
Alexa, bedroom light 1 on.
Okay.
Alexa, what is my diary for today?
Today there is one event remaining. At 2:15 p.m. there's friends round for lunch.
Alexa, can you find me a recipe for easy tomato pasta?
Okay, for tomato pasta that takes less than 30 minutes, here are a few recipes.
Alexa, can you put tinned tomatoes on my shopping list?
I've put tinned tomatoes on your shopping list.
Hi. Please wait. It may take me a moment to answer. Hi. Please wait. It may take me a moment to answer.
What's up?
Hey guys, come in!
Okay. Hi.
Hi.
Hello, what's up, Jimmy?
Miracle.
What do you guys want to watch?
What do you?
I'm thinking.
Oh, look, Spider-Man.
Right now, please. Bye, Kai. Have a lovely day.
Thank you.
See you later.
See you later.
See you later. See you later.
See ya.
Oh.
So for Kai to be able to...
Alexa, bedroom light 1 out.
Okay.
Alexa, good night.
Good night. Sweet dreams.
For Kai to be able to vacuum at the end of the day was something that actually was really important to him. And so working with him and looking at the routines that he wants to put on his Alexa so that he wakes up at a certain time, that he can control his lights in a way that he has called them that particular name, has been really key. And whilst the Alexa app might be able to do lots of other different things, those were the key things that were right for Kai, and for Kai to be able to sort of develop that. And so that's kind of where we use our smart home flat to be able to work with groups of young people with regards to what the options are, but also with regards to individuals, looking at their routines, what's appropriate for them. Kai didn't want someone else to wake him up. He wanted to be able to set his alarm to wake himself up. And some of our young people have that on their phones. Kai really wanted it on the Alexa because he has an Alexa at home. And so working with individuals and their aspirations means that actually he can be more independent than he has ever been previously. So Laura, there's just a slide next of my top 5 apps for accessibility, and these are all on that sheet that Laura's added into the chat. Google Lens and Office Lens are like our staple apps because literacy is such a key thing. But the apps that we use as well are things like What 3 Words. So if a young person doesn't have the retention of a full address, what we do is we work with that young person to find out the 3 words that are most memorable to them on their road. So once our young people are on their road, they know which house is theirs. So rather than people having something separate written down to keep that dignity, to keep that autonomy, to be able to make sure that our young people can be independent, they can get home safely, should they end up being in a position that they end up being lost, for instance. And actually, that's been a really key thing to work with young people, to look at words that they will remember easily, and What 3 Words has been really key to that. And I think that the success of that is key to the fact that our emergency services use What 3 Words, and therefore, because our emergency services use What 3 Words, it becomes a really functional, important app from the point of view of young people keeping safe. And Tell Me the Time is one of my favourite apps as well, because a lot of our young people struggle with time. And I used to really like the talking clock. Phoning up the talking clock to hear the time was definitely a key childhood perk. And this basically is the modern day version of that. And so if you have a young person who actually can see those numbers, but actually thinks that they need to, or is unable to tell the time in a meaningful way, this actually takes away that onus of having to process what is the time, to being told the time, and then actually being able to focus on the processing of what does that then mean for me, because otherwise you're adding so many other steps in. It can be quite a difficult thing. And then I put Flip up there as well. And then the last thing, before, because I know that there are some questions and things, the last thing is one of the key things that we have done to be able to get to the point where we are is that it can't just sit with one person. It has to be the staff in general, stakeholders in general, the young people in general. So we do a lot of training, but directed time is a really hot topic in education, rightly so, because actually people are really busy. And so we have something called 60-second CPD, which is our last slide. And 60-second CPD, I think it's on there, Laura. Just the next, yeah. So 60-second CPD basically is just a series of videos. It might be to do one little thing. So it might be a whole app, or it might be just to put your signature on your email. We use 60-second CPD for lots and lots of different things, because then it's accessible on demand. So it doesn't mean that you rely on your staff all having joined on the same day in September. And also a lot of stuff, I mean, I've sat through, in the last 20 years, I've sat through so many CPD sessions where you sit in a hall for an hour, or you go onto a webinar and hear some crazy lady talking for an hour, and you think, oh, these are wonderful, wonderful things. And then you go back and live your life, because actually your life is so full, you can't necessarily start to put these things in practice. We don't necessarily have the capacity and education to start to implement things, even if we see that there could be a purpose for them. So we developed 60-second CPD because it focuses on one skill at a time when you want it, or at a time when you need it. And so that has been probably the key to our success, is being able to point people to the right CPD when they need it, in the ways that they need it. So Go Talk Lite is an app that we use quite a lot. It's a free to use AAC app. And for our young people who are not open to the CAP team, who don't have funding long term for an AAC device, but actually who would like to be able to use that, that's been quite a key app. And so we have a video from our speech and language therapist about how to use that, which we won't go into now. But we try and encourage members of staff from across the college to create these 60-second CPDs. And so it's high impact, but from the point of view of teacher time, which is so precious, it's actually been really, really successful, because it's quite low stakes from that point of view. And that's kind of the end of my ramblings. I'm sure that there are questions that I've missed as they've come through into the chat. I've not been sort of looking at the chat. So Laura, have we got any questions or anything? Laura, you're on mute if you are trying to speak.
Just while Laura unmutes herself, I think she's having a wee bit of a fiddle there with the settings. Well, just want to say thanks. I don't know about anyone else. I was so I love the videos and seeing the real examples. And actually, I found it really, like, I just got quite emotional. You know, it just like the power of the technology to enable students to do, you know, to live independently. I think Mike put a message in the chat saying that this is the future of independent living. And it's just, yeah, just the potential there is incredible. And I love the little the Hoover coming in at the end. So that was absolutely fantastic. So thanks for that. Those were great.
Yep.
Oh, I think Laura, you're back.
I don't know what, my computer's having a day of its own, but I love the videos too. I was getting quite emotional as well. I was like, oh, because that is what you want. You want your kids to just be able to do for themselves. And I think as a parent, sometimes it's really difficult to watch them struggle with a process, whatever that process is, and to just be able to then watch them flourish. Oh, I was loving it. I was loving it. It's been a day of that kind of emotional chat for us, isn't it, Kelly? So we're like, oh, this is amazing. So in terms of questions, would anyone like to ask Libby anything? If you stick your hand up, just don't all rush at once. If you put your hand up, then we can ask. I know I've got a couple if nobody fires one in, but I think you've got loads of people saying how amazing that was, brilliant stuff into the chat. So yeah. Have you, I know all the things that you showed us there in the videos there, and I particularly loved the story about a man. That was just perfect. I was just like, oh, because that is him just applied learning, isn't it? That's what, you know, taking something they know and then, oh, that's brilliant. Has there been any other kind of unexpected results from using an app or a particular thing where you've thought, oh, I did not see somebody using it? I know I'm putting you on the spot here with that question, so feel free to have a think about it. But I just wondered, because I think for me, sometimes when I see a new app, my brain loves the story that's just been told to me, but my brain then automatically starts thinking, what could I do with that? How could I apply that in the college that I work in, or the place that I work in? So if anyone can think of those things, please either put your hand up and tell us what your brain, it doesn't have to work or be a working thing in reality, but put them in the chat or tell us. But Libby, I just wondered if you'd had any other kind of, we didn't see that coming moments with an app.
Yeah, I mean, I think originally we started with the 2 different versions of Lens and with GoTalk. And that was our intention. We didn't intend to be at 32 apps with a smart flat and training job coaches so that they can support people in the real world and all of those sorts of elements. So I think the entire thing actually was quite unintended to begin with, but we saw that there was that need, and by working with young people about the things that they can do really well, but also then the things that maybe they feel as though they want to do better, that's kind of our starting point. And then we go out and have a look at what is out there that's appropriate. Do we need to try and find funding for you for that, or is actually what's out there on your phone already appropriate? So we try and sort of look at the wide range, and there is definitely a real place for more traditional forms of assistive technology where that's appropriate. But for a lot of our young people, I mean, the fact that we have young people now not falling asleep at the end of the day because they've used Lens and actually they were able to read, and we never would have put them on the list of people to have an intervention, as it were, but actually by teaching holistically, we've been able to take away a lot of that cognitive load for some young people, and giving that choice, having that ability that actually, if you choose to read it in this way, that's perfectly acceptable in the real world and here, and actually that's appropriate. And so I'd say probably that is probably one of the unintended consequences, is those learners who you wouldn't necessarily have kind of highlighted, who are really benefiting from some of these apps. And then just some beautiful, beautiful things with how technology is developing. And Google Lens now with the translate function, we've just rebranded, so we have a different logo compared with previously, and we had some new mugs. I hadn't realised that in the classroom where I was, that was the one thing I wasn't supposed to touch, so I used them as a resource in a lesson. And I did apologise afterwards, but we used the translate, and then it literally takes away the English and overlays it with AI, with the language that you're trying to translate something into. And I think those sorts of things have become really, really very powerful very quickly. And we don't pretend to be the experts for a second. These are the things that are working with our learners at the moment, but we are always open to people coming to visit, people having a virtual visit, or people telling us about things that maybe we haven't looked at and discussed previously. We're all about collaboration, because I think that's how we all kind of move forward.
Amazing. I'm just going to double check. We've got Chris is talking about the issue with GDPR, that he's encountered that in his research and having to find a balance. And then somebody's sorry, I think that's Chiara. Apologies if I've said that wrong. Do you have to research how data is collected and used by the developer before recommending an app? What's your kind of process for kind of picking your apps? What kind of things do you have a look for?
So our apps, from the point of view of development, of if they are Microsoft apps, we already have our data stored within that, and therefore actually that's where we kind of started out, was using Microsoft apps because of that exact reason. Any app at the moment, before we then sort of advocate its use, we look at what data it collects, and we find a lot of that information on the various different app stores and the developer information there, and look to see whether or not that's an appropriate thing for our young people. The majority of the apps that we use don't require you to sign up. They don't require personal information, but it's definitely a consideration. And I'd echo with what Chris, I think it is, said with regards to that way up with GDPR. I mean, it's really key, making sure that obviously you protect your young people's data, and that they understand that that data is either going to be collected or not, because when they leave, they will need to make those choices for themselves. And so we run workshops for stakeholders as well. So that might be people working in supported living, it might be parents. We have a wonderful woman who organises these amazing outreach programs so that we can actually help the network around these young people as well to continue to make those good decisions when they've left us, because otherwise that's not going to be the safest thing in the world.
Awesome. And I think we'll maybe just squeeze one last question in. James is saying, my son has ASD and struggles with face-to-face interactions and making friends. We got him a VR headset and he is completely different online and is social and confident, which is helping him develop core skills. So the question is, can you recommend any other tech or apps that you guys have used or use in a more learning context to support children with additional needs?
So I would say that we've seen incredible impact with Flip, with using Flip from the point of view of two-way communication, because a lot of our young people are happier to talk into a phone. So you can use Flip on a phone, you can use it also on a laptop. And so we will have young people who, if you ask them a question outright, wouldn't necessarily give you an answer. But if you ask it through a video on Flip, then that's been a massive game changer. Their confidence, their ability to express themselves is completely different. And that's where Teams has come into its own as well, utilising things like Teams in an education context, allowing people. So we've got a young man who doesn't join his maths lesson in the classroom. He joins it from a different room remotely via Teams and uses OneNote. So his teacher can see all the work that he's doing as he's doing it. He's able to engage in the lesson, he's able to answer questions effectively, he's able to be an active participant. He also then has the confidence to actually make progress in that way. And so utilising that kind of sort of hybrid approach of a bit of Teams and a bit of OneNote, and actually what works with him and what he's most comfortable with, has made a massive difference to him accessing education.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Well, we're at 28 minutes past, so I just want to say an absolutely massive thank you, Libby. That's just been so inspiring and interesting, and I've taken notes on the apps, and I'm totally, it's been amazing. So thank you so much. Really appreciate that. I'm sure everybody feels the same. And yeah, they're starting to say good presentation. Thank you. What have we got to tell you in terms of what's coming up next, Kelly? Because my brain's emptied.
A couple of things, yeah. Oh, sorry, I should have had links ready and things. Just that, you know, we're the next clinic, we'll be sending information around about it, but we're going to have a look at the interesting combination, or where worlds collide, of accessibility and sustainability. So we're going to have a bit. So if any of you have got any thoughts or experiences around that, do drop me a line if there's anything you'd like to share. And just another note as well is that we've got 80 training courses coming up. The first one is towards the end of November, and it's about needs assessment for assistive tech. And there's like one free place for each organisation, and it's a JISC member until the courses are full. So I'll very quickly try and put that link in.
Oh,
I should have had it ready to go. Oh,
Edward's
Edward,
done it
thank
for you. He's a star.
Thank you. So there's only 11 places left on that course, so you need to get a move on if you want to join that. But yeah, so please do keep engaging in our communities on Teams and on the mailing list. Now I think someone was asking how they could get in touch with Libby if they needed to. Was that answered, or have I missed that?
No, Libby, if you have an email address that you're happy for people to contact you on, then we will hand that out. As Edward said at the very beginning, the recording and the transcript will go up onto the web page, and we'll put any information and things like that. And if Libby's happy for an address to go out, we'll put that in the community underneath the post for this particular session. So we'll let people do that, and hopefully we'll all keep talking about this, because it's been a good one. I think everyone, it's been a good one.
Yeah,
all right,
it has. Bang on time as well, 1:30.
Well, there you go.
Well done to everybody.
Libby's also putting our address into the chat, so thank you for that, Libby, too. Thank you. Great stuff, people. Okay, well, it's pretty dull here, but I hope your day is shiny and bright, and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, and we'll see you on the 1st of November. All right, take care.